Hi all, this is Sk8, and I have with me Satan from the Legion clan.
Hi all.
And this is part 2 to Sk8 Does Minsk, which is a really bad name, I'm well aware, but I couldn't think of anything better. But I'm feeling more alive, more coherent than I did this morning. So, we've been at Wargaming HQ today, and Satan's been there as well, so I invited him along to chat on this part 2, because there is some really cool, exciting news coming up. I've got information on my iPad here, which is, well, we can call it sneak peek, because this information hasn't been out until, well, today, when everybody's gone, are you serious? Is that really happening? So I've got a lot of cool things from the devs. We asked them a lot of questions. We met the bigwig in BLITZ, who's actually sitting at the next table by there, doing important business things. But it was very surreal, and I have a lot more respect for the devs now than I did before, because fair play to them, they got a tough job. And I didn't realize how hard it was for them to balance stuff. But to be fair, it's a challenging job. And they gave me loads of, like, I say me, they gave us all lots of sneak peek information, so I'm not complaining. And they're doing more big changes at Tier 10, guys. Here's the list. If I turn it. Okay. So, they said they're fixing big issues at Tier 10. We're like, okay, such as? Well, IS-4 is not a very popular tank. It will be. They're buffing the front armor on the IS-4, and are they reducing the side?
Yeah, they said they were going to reduce the side armor, since they said that the IS-4's frontal armor at the moment makes it basically not a great brawling tank, whereas it's kind of more of a side-scrapey tank. They wanted the IS-4 to be more of a brawler. Yeah.
I was paying attention, but you'd be surprised how much things are lost across the table. But it is IS-4 more frontal armor. We don't know when these things are coming, but there's big changes coming, which is kind of cool. They're also buffing the FV2 and 5B, not the 183, the heavy. They're buffing the side armor on it, which means it's going to side scrape very well. And being as it's reiterated, all I have in my head is the Tier 9 VK, the mother-in-law.
Yeah.
That. Can you imagine that with the rate of fire of the FV? It's going to be insane.
They said it was their original intention to make it the side-scraping tank, whereas the IS-4 is, it's not really designed for that.
It's not, but it's a reiterated tank, and it's got no side-scraping ability, because you over-angle and that's it.
Yeah.
You're screwed.
Exactly.
But they're doing that. Oh, also, on a note of British tanks, do you want to share the news on this one?
Well, the British tanks for do you mean the FV and the Centurion?
Yeah.
So they're going to be separating the guns, finally.
Potentially.
Potentially. They said they were going to separate...
Everything is pretty much... Well, some things are potential.
Yep, so for those who prefer to use the heat on the FV, can choose that gun, and then there'll be another gun which uses HESH. So, same with the Centurion, I believe, as well.
We asked a specific question of... My argument is they buffed the tank for the average player, and then they nerfed it for the 60% plus player, and to me that's a contradiction, and I put that to them. And they did say, and I got respect for this, they said we made a mistake, we shouldn't have buffed and nerfed it the way we did. So they're looking at solutions, whether that be two different guns, you can choose heat or HESH at that point, but they are definitely looking at both those tanks, which is amazing. And there's more amazing news on the British front, and you can see me smiling. I can't hold it in. I can't. I asked about a Chieftain Mark 6, and the answer was yes. It was just a straight yes. We already started looking at it, they said, and they're also looking at adding the Centurion Action X.
Yeah, pretty similar to how the Object 140 branches off from the 62A right now. Yeah.
But they said something interesting which I never expected, which was moving certain tanks to Tier 9 potentially. Now, they said potential, but what they said is definite, or more than likely, is that the Chieftain Mark 6 and the Centurion Action X are coming to BLITZ. That's amazing news. Oh, guys, you have no idea how happy I am about that. I don't know when. It could be at the start of 2018. It could be at the end. But they're definitely coming. What's coming soon, though, is changes to the E3, the E4, and the E5. So all the American tier 10s are getting a revamp. E3 and E4, I don't know if you guys are aware, there's a mantlet hole. So where the mantlet is, you've got spaced armor around the side, and it's just around the gun on the other side, isn't it?
Yeah, it's basically, you have the mantlet in front, which I believe is like 200 millimeters of spaced armor, but behind that you've got 0. So they're planning on fixing that, so it's much harder to,
It's going to be very hard to pen them. And the E5 is a big deal.
This is probably the biggest change of tanks, I'd say.
Hey guys, you know that cupola on top of the E5? It's going. In 4.6 it's going.
Yep, that's what they said.
In 4.6, in 2 patches, the E5 is having its turret buffed by having the cupola removed, just like they did on the M48 Patton.
Yep, they also said they were going to tweak the hull slightly and also balance the DPM, so it's slightly less of a beast. But
basically, with that removed, with improvements on the armor all over the hull, and obviously the turret, they said they're going to probably have to nerf the DPM, but that thing is going to be a hull-down machine now.
It is going to be a monster.
And to be honest, it's one of those tanks, it's always been the jack of all trades, but it's kind of fallen out now, because you've got your mediums and you've got mobile heavies, and that's not exactly a heavy anymore, it's like a slow medium.
Well, at least it's got a really good role now in the meta, because it's going to be used as the prominent hull-down heavy tank, definitely.
Honestly, guys, I'm over the moon about all this.
Yeah.
We've got like a buff to the FV2 and 5B, a buff to the IS4. It'd be nice to see that back in the game a bit more. E4, E3, E5. That's amazing. That is amazing. Oh, there is the potential for some changes to the IS7 as well.
Sure, lots of people will be happy to hear that, including...
Now, I got booed across the table for this by a lot of the clan guys, because... They all like the IS7 as it stands. And it's not my fault, I will point that out.
No, it is fair enough.
I asked the question, but I asked the question of, obviously, the meta's changed from mediums to heavies. And I put the point forward of, well, you've got an IS7, which has got the heavy armor, medium mobility, and it's got an okay gun. Everyone's just going to take IS7s everywhere. And they agreed. So what they're looking at doing is potentially reducing the top speed on an IS7. They said potentially, and also making further reductions to the side armor potentially. Those were potentials, but they seemed pretty sure on it. They seemed like it was something in the pipeline, but they don't want to tell us when.
Yeah, we were going on a trend of tanks we felt were overpowered, and the Death Star was brought up.
And they're not making any changes to it.
Which is a relief to some people.
That's actually a nice note to bring that up on, because a lot of people are unhappy with the back chat and the small clips. We asked them how they balance it on 3.
We did.
And they tried with 4 clips, and they said the tank is out of the game for too long, because it'll have to have that bigger reload, that it makes too much of an impact on the game, especially for the average player.
Yeah.
On top of that, I didn't know this, but it's actually very interesting. They won't give an autoloader more alpha in one clip than the highest alpha tank destroyer of that tier. Now that's interesting, because that gives us a perspective of how they balance these tanks. So basically, it's pretty much around what Death Star territory is in terms of damage.
They're balanced on the Death Star, guys. There you go.
So yeah, unless we can get a tank which has got its alpha at 1,200, obviously the Hesh, but we're talking like AP here, then we wouldn't get 4-clip autoloaders, because they say it'll be out the game for far too long, which I kind of get. I'm disappointed by it at the same time. I don't agree with some of the things they do in terms of balance, but it's not up to us, and we don't get to see all the stats.
Yeah, this leads on to the Foch 155, which currently people believe is definitely one of the weaker tier 10 tank destroyers. And we questioned them about whether, or how they felt about making 2 shells of the 155mm, and they were like, no.
Yeah, that was a flat-out no, because they said they'd have to give it like a 50-second reload, which I disagree with.
Yep.
My personal opinion, as I think we all did, is, can you imagine 2 155mm shells with a 5-second reload in between each one, and then something like a 30-second reload? That's not an excessive reload.
No.
Can you imagine it? But when you give it that sort of perspective, you're still not talking high DPM. You're actually talking around 2,000... or 2,500, 2,400, probably a little bit less. So it's not high DPM, but they said they'd have to balance it with that. You brought this up, which is a very valid point. Obviously, PC have just got the Foch 120. they've already trialed that, guys. They've already trialed the concept of a 3-clip 120 Foch. And they didn't like it. They said, being as it was turretless, that they didn't think it was very strong. But what they're doing is leaving it as it stands. If the Foch 155 continues to be unpopular and they need to do something drastic, then that's when we have a high likelihood of receiving the 120mm 3-clip autoloader. They're not going to make any changes to 155 as it stands, though. They don't want to put an autoloader on that 155, which I get, kind of. I still get my point of 2 clips. That would be amazing.
It was a common theme they brought up. They mentioned when we asked about tanks and how well we did in them, they always brought up saying, oh, but the statistics show that the average player performs as we would expect in them. So exactly as you said, Foch 155 won't be receiving any changes.
It's interesting how they balance on that, because we asked them, how do you balance them?
Yeah.
And basically the answer is they only look at the statistics of players with a 55% win rate to a 65% win rate. If you fall out of that category, then they wouldn't look at your statistics in a certain tank to balance it. So that's how they judge their balancing. That's important, I think, because that gives a very good perspective of how they work it out. My answer is surely that creates a gap between the 45 and the 65 at that point, because
completely. Yeah.
I mean, the Centurion, the answer is get good. That is their answer.
Well, it works. The Hesh only really worked for good players, which is why they changed it, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not even making this up. I literally, they said, okay, what about a 45% player in a Centurion? They're really going to struggle. Well, yeah, they do, but they will need to improve. Aren't like 45 to 55 the vast majority? Yes, if they struggle in the tank, they just need to get good in it. So there you go. That's from the devs directly.
Speaking of the like weird changes, they said their quote for the Panzer 2J, all of the tier 2 and tier 3 tanks, if you remember, all of their HP pools were buffed.
Oh yeah, I got in trouble for that one.
Yep, and they said that they were buffing these tanks around the Panzer 2J. Actually, well, they didn't say that. They said they didn't know anything about it, but we kind of assumed that that's what they meant.
Now, the reason this came up is because if I flip to the next screen of my notes, tier 7 came up. That's what they're looking at rebalancing. And I asked the dev, are they going to rebalance Drak? Now, apparently, one of the big cheeses in Blitz is a huge fan of Drak. So he had a big and face on, which was quite funny. You could see he was a huge fan of it, and I know a lot of you guys are huge fans of it. But I basically pointed out, or I asked, I was like, well, if you remember the low tiers, they buffed the hit pool of a lot of tanks, except the premiums. They didn't really buff them as much, or except overpowered premiums like the PZ2J.
Yeah.
I said, so where you're not allowed to buff a premium tank, or where you're not allowed to nerf a premium tank, the workaround is almost to buff everything else around it, which is very sneaky and it's very clever. But as soon as we pointed this out, the answer was, I don't know what you're talking about. Which is
followed by a lot of laughter.
Yeah, by a lot of laughter. And I think that is what happened. That is what is going to happen. Because I don't think they're going to nerf Drak by the sounds of it, because it's a premium. But they said there are huge tier 7 rebalances coming in 2018, which is a good thing. As long as they don't touch my E25, I will be pissed.
They're not going to actually be touching any of the premium tanks in a bad way, because they actually announced sort of that there was the potential of increased spare parts for premium vehicles, which for those who have hundreds of premium vehicles sitting in their garage because they no longer need credits, this is going to be really good for us.
It's that wasn't guaranteed though.
Yeah, it wasn't guaranteed.
That wasn't guaranteed, but there's
something brought up.
Real nice chance that that's going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the notes, and the last thing is buffing around premiums. We don't know what you're talking about. Followed by wanted Drak, nerf the Drak, but can't.
Do you want to mention some of the esports stuff?
I'd probably say to keep that for a separate one, because we're already 14 minutes down, guys. I'd say in terms of balancing buffs and nerfs, which I imagine the general player base, the vast majority are going to be more interested in that side of things. I got respect for the devs, actually, since meeting them. I genuinely do, because they didn't sit there and go, oh, well, this and that. And they tried to explain their perspective, and they were quite honest in saying, we screwed up. when they screwed up. But they also they took the time to answer a lot of our questions. I'm not kidding, we were at Wargaming HQ for
6 hours.
6 hours. 6 hours literally just talking to devs about just
Balances. Well,
balances, tanks,
basically,
maps.
well, yeah, we actually had 4 sessions with each different separate pairs of wargaming developers. So we had map developers, we had mechanics developers who operated the client, server side stuff.
Rigs.
Yeah, and we also met the head of BLITZ. So we had a really great insight into all of the operations.
He was loopy.
And as Sk8 said, I mean, we don't really give these guys enough respect for like all the work they do. I think after coming away from today, I really appreciate all of the work they put into it.
I personally am one of the people who quite like with the Centurions. I probably still will be. I'll still be, because if we don't, this is actually important as well. If we don't express our opinion in a logical way, they won't hear it.
Yeah.
And they do watch the videos and they do react to them.
Well, a great example is Bushka's video. He was the one that actually brought up the E3 and the E4 mantlets.
The E3 and E4 mantlet have always been the way they were, but the general population didn't know that. But when Bushka pointed it out, they also were more aware of it, and because of that, they've agreed that after watching Bushka's video, they're going to be adjusting the E3 and the E4. I would personally like to see the E4 cupola moved.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. But that's not going to happen, I don't think. Well, I don't know, actually. It's going to happen to the mantlets, and it's definitely happening to the E5 in 3.6. Oh, and there's a map coming in 3.5.
4.5.
4.5. Why do I keep saying?
We're a version ahead of that.
Okay, I said I was coherent, slightly coherent. In 4.5, there's a new map coming. In 4.6, there's a huge buff to the E5. And I've got a nice camo on my E5, and it's sitting there collecting dust right now, and I cannot wait to take it back out. That's going to be competitive again.
Yeah, well.
So we've got the we've got T57 now, which is going to be a mobile DPM machine in comparison.
Yeah.
And then we're going to have the E5, which they're going to cut back on the DPM, but they're going to make it a hull-down monster. I really can't wait for those changes. There were other things discussed. They showed us how they balance maps and how they do all those things, and I've taken a ton of screenshots. But if I was to go through all of that right now, we are going to be talking for like another 20 minutes.
I mean, we're trying to have to summarize 6 hours worth of information into what it's going to take a while.
The key things, though, is there's a good chance of a chieftain, or it is highly likely with the chief. No, it's happening,
practically
guys.
happening.
It's happening.
Yeah.
We just don't know when. Centurion Action X, it's happening. We just don't know when. E5 is in 4.6. I'm really excited for that. I genuinely cannot express it enough. And then obviously the 2 and 5B and the E3 and the E4. And then obviously they've gone into a lot of depth how they balance things. And I think that'd be nice to make a proper video on that, because the blog stuff I'm not the greatest at. So if I get home, I can write it all up, make a proper video, and basically get it all out to you guys, and it'd be nice and informative on how they balance things. Because like I said, I still don't agree with all their decisions. Just because I understand and have more respect for them, it doesn't mean that I don't have a difference of opinion. Like the autoloaders, I personally would be quite happy to have a longer reload. Yeah. Personally. Yeah. I'd much prefer it, in all honesty. But they say for the average player, or for the majority of players, it takes the tank out for too long, which has too much of an impact. You never know, that might change in the future though. But they were genuinely nice guys. They genuinely took the time to listen to everything we said. And it was just good fun.
I also think it's important to note quickly about the maps. There were some rumours about 15 versus 15.
It's not happening.
And bigger maps, yeah, they're not happening, I'm afraid, guys. So we're stuck with 7-7 for now. But it
was literally a no.
We are expecting potentially some new game modes in the future. We weren't given really any
customization. See, there was so much stuff.
This is the most exciting part for us, wasn't it?
No, E5 was for me.
Okay.
Yeah, see, there's so much stuff to cover. In 2018, they're working on a current project which will basically give us a lot of customization options in terms of the appearance on our tank. Now, they wouldn't go into too much details because they said it's still a project, but they said it's very big, it's very exciting. And that's kind of a really cool thing, because the idea of being able to customize my camo for my tank Yeah, please.
Yeah, adding a British flag
British
or an
flag.
E25 onto the side of your E25.
Yep.
How about that?
Or Skate Extreme on the lower plate.
Yeah.
All those things are highly likely to happen. And they've said they should be looking at it soon. Someone asked about ammo racks as well.
That was me.
That was you.
Yeah, that was me.
And the answer there was they're already working on stuff like that. They can't guarantee when stuff like that's coming in, or even if it will on all devices straight away. They don't know how to balance it, but it's something they're working on. When I say ammo racks, I mean turrets popping off.
Yeah, they mentioned that it's important to note that because of the restrictions of playing on a device, obviously, like you can't have the 15 versus 15. You can't always have the better graphics and better physics. But I think they're doing a pretty good job of trying to, you know.
Although one thing on
fold
that,
it in.
you know, on the test clients,
Yeah.
you can add as many bots as you want.
Really?
Yeah.
And how does it run?
I'll put a screenshot up at some point, guys. And I've asked Wargaming previously if I'm allowed to share this.
Okay.
And they said because it doesn't contain anything leaky, so to speak, there's nothing that's stopping me sharing it. And Daxia, what replays, he's got this on one of his live streams. He went and added a load of bots, and he added about 40 versus 40. You can do it on the test clients. You can do it.
Sometime.
You can literally just add as many bots as you want, and it gets to the point where it does just. You got lines coming down both sides, and it just breaks the game. But it's good fun to see that many in the battle at once, and they're bots, guys. So you know what they all do? They just drive into a wall. it's ridiculous. But I'm going to cut it off here because we're at 21 minutes, and this is all information about just changes which are coming. But in all fairness, I really hope you guys are excited as I am, as we all are actually leaving there, with all these new changes coming, because the E5 without a cupola, that's just bringing it back in.
Especially with all the new medium rebuffs and stuff like that. I mean, this game is really starting to, you know, shape up.
It is. They're making a roadmap for 2018, and these are some of the stuff which we begged. I was like, "Oh, please, can I share this?" And they literally had to go phone and get permission, and then they went, "Yeah, you guys can share it," and everyone's like, "Hey!" So yeah, we're all very, very happy to share this. Oh, this is the mic I'm using because they're on the road. Right, I'm going to cut it off here, guys. Thank you all very, very much for watching. Genuinely excited to see what's happening in the future. And thank you all for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.